Hi. Hello, you fucks. Welcome to John Solo's Beard Brigade. I'm John Solo, you are not, and we are doing a Storytime episode. It's been a long time since we've done one of these. I don't remember what I do. I think what I do is I read the blurb, and then I tell you which chapter we're doing, and then we roll into it from there. And every time I mess up the chapter number, and Tracy corrects me. So that's what we do. Today is for this book here, Dragon's Honor. This is Irresistible Dragons Book Two by the lovely Nora Phoenix, and we are about halfway through production, somewhere in there.
Penis.
You gotta put the thumbs up when you hear the penis thing. I'm gonna read the summary real quick. I'll put the graphic up while I read it. An alpha dragon, an alpha wolf, and an omega wolf? How could that possibly work? Jermon is trying to find his place in the Hightower pack, but he's struggling. After some mishaps, he discovers he enjoys assisting Wilmer, an alpha, and the veterinarian. As a bonus, Wilmer is easy on the eyes, and they get along well. Other than that, things are rough. Jermon feels like he doesn't belong anywhere. He's not allowed to shift, and on top of that, people are scared of him. Like Riordan, the Omega who was briefly held prisoner by Jermon's father. Riordan still has nightmares and even panic attacks when one of the dragons comes too close to him. The guilt is killing Jermon. When Riordan decides he wants to spend time with Jermon to get over his trauma and Wilmer agrees to supervise, sparks fly between the three men. But how could this work with two alphas, and with Jermon being a dragon? Plus, there's this other big problem no one knows about, that Jermon is convinced, sure, he'll always be a virgin. I forgot. Jermon's big problem. When the dragons are finally allowed to shift, they have no idea of what danger this will bring to the pack. Dragon's Honor is an MMM-impreg romance and the second book in the Irresistible Dragons series, which needs to be read in order. The love story ends on a cliffhanger and will be continued in the next book, as will the suspense plot. I forgot that Jermon's big problem is he has a huge dick. I don't really want to say it out loud. You get the idea what I'm saying. It's a problem. I believe this session, you're going to watch a live session. You guys have done this before, you're going to hear mistakes and everything like that. It's an actual session that we did, so I'm not really playing to the camera or stopping to explain things. You'll hear Tracy in the background. She'll do corrections, and I perform in Discord, so you'll see me occasionally looking over and commenting at somebody saying something on Discord. But you know the way it works. I think it was chapter 17, I believe. So no real setup. The three are going to have dinner. Enjoy. Have fun. Chapter 17. Wilmer thought the date with Riordan and Jermon had gone well. Sure, the start had been a tad awkward, but then the conversation had flowed and he'd felt good afterward. Hell, he'd had fun. Though he probably shouldn't call it a date, even though that had flowed and he'd felt good afterward. Hell, he'd had fun. Though he probably shouldn't call it a date, even if that was how his brains stubbornly kept calling it. If Riordan found out, he might not be pleased. But how could Wilmer kept calling it? If Riordan found out, he might not be pleased. But how could Wilmer not call it a date when it had looked like one? Food, privacy, an intimate conversation, and the company of men he liked. How was that not a date? He kept his mouth shut, though, especially toward Riordan. The last thing he wanted and the company of men he liked. How was that not a date? He'd keep his mouth shut, though, especially toward Riordan. The last thing he wanted was to offend him or scare him off. Not when he'd loved the time they'd spent together and was dying for a repeat. But the dinner had also resulted in making him as confused as hell. Jermon had been on his mind a lot before their not date, but since that night, Wilmer kept thinking of Riordan as well. Yeah, let's put the stress on Jermon to emphasize. But the dinner had also resulted in making him as confused as hell. Jermon had been on his mind a lot before their not date, but since that night, Wilmer kept thinking of Riordan as well. Yet the way he felt about those two was so different. With Jermon, it was a combination of lust and friendship. Wilmer liked him, but he was also attracted to him. Bluntly put, he would love to fuck him into the mattress and explore all kinds of dirty things with him. The attraction was stronger that he had felt into the mattress and explore all kinds of dirty things with him. The attraction was stronger than he'd felt in a long time, but it was still sexual chemistry. But Riordan was another matter. Did Wilmer want him? He did, but in a different way. His feelings were so much more tender. Maybe it was because he was an Omega, but Wilmer had all these soft, protective urges toward him. He wanted to take care of Riordan, make sure he was okay, that he was happy, and all that crap. What did that mean? Was one better or more important than the other? Could they indicate the same thing, or was he just making shit up now? He never imagined finding his mates to be this complicated, and he wasn't even talking about Germain being another alpha and a dragon to boot. The good news was that Riordan must have appreciated their time together as well. Otherwise, he wouldn't have asked them for a second date or hangout meeting. Apparently, he had liked spending time with them and wanted a repeat. Wilmer had suggested he find them something to do, and so he and Germain waited for Riordan at the stables, the horses saddled and ready to go for a ride. They had both put in 6 hours of work already, and had freshened up a bit and changed into clothes that didn't have a dozen at the stables, the horses saddled and ready to go for a ride. They'd both put in 6 hours of work already and had freshened up a bit and changed into clothes that didn't have a dozen unidentifiable stains. Dressed in jeans, boots, and a hoodie, they looked pretty similar, which made it weird that Wilmer loved Germain's outfit. Didn't that mean he was complimenting himself? Whatever. The man looked good, the jeans stretching around his muscles. Nothing wrong with Wilmer noticing it, was there? "Thank you again for doing this," Germain said. "My pleasure. You don't mind? I feel guilty for dragging you into this." Wilmer chuckled. "You feel guilty for something you didn't ask? For me offering to hang out with two people I don't mind spending time with at all? For taking off work early and going horseback riding? Yeah, you should feel guilty. You're putting me through something horrific." Germain laughed sheepishly. "Well, when you put it like that." Wilmer laid his hand on Germain's arm. "I promise you have nothing to feel guilty about. I enjoyed dinner, and I'm looking forward to spending time with both of you again." Germain breathed out, his body relaxing under Wilmer's touch. "I'm glad to hear it. So am I. And I think your idea of going horseback riding is brilliant. Don't get me wrong, I'm horribly afraid of embarrassing myself by getting thrown off, but nonetheless I'm excited to ride again." "No worries, Jackie and Sweetie are super calm. It's not like I'm asking you to ride Cerie." "Yeah, no. She's magnificent, but I'm not ready for her yet." "We're going horseback riding?" Both Wilmer and Germain turned around. The Omega was bouncing on his feet, his eyes wide. "Yeah, let's have him a bit more excited about going horseback riding." "No. She's magnificent, but I'm not ready for her yet." "We're going horseback riding?" Both Wilmer and Germain turned around. The Omega was bouncing on his feet, his eyes wide. "Yes, if you want to, no pressure," Wilmer said. Shit, he shouldn't have sprung this on Riordan, but should have given him a heads up and asked for his opinion. At least then the Omega would have been prepared and able to dress appropriately. "Yes, if you want to, no pressure," Wilmer said. Shit, he shouldn't have sprung this on Riordan, but should have given him a heads up and asked for his opinion. At least then the Omega would have prepared. Omega would have. One more time with feeling. "Yes, if you want to, no pressure," Wilmer said. Shit, he shouldn't have sprung this on Riordan, but should have given him a heads up and asked for his opinion. At least then the Omega would have been prepared and able to dress appropriately. Though Wilmer had to admit, Riordan looked mighty fine in a pair of tight jeans and a soft pink woolen sweater. But maybe he didn't like horses, or was scared to ride. He totally should have asked him. Riordan smiled broadly. "Oh my gosh, yes, I would love to." He gestured at himself. "Would you mind if I took time to change, though? I love this sweater, but it's not the most practical for sitting on a horse." "Of course, sorry. I only now realize I should have asked you." Riordan sent him a sunny smile. "No problem at all. I love horses, and I haven't ridden in a while, so I'm excited." Just give me a few minutes, okay?" He ran off, and Wilmer watched him until he was out of sight. Damn, those jeans made his ass pop. When he glanced sideways, Germain was staring in the same direction. "That color pink looks amazing on him," Wilmer said. Germain swallowed. "It does, but he always looks good." Oh, was the dragon developing a bit of a crush on Riordan? Wilmer couldn't blame him. Not when he had started to see Riordan in a different light himself. Yet the thought didn't sit well with him. Though why, he didn't know. When he tried to picture Germain and Riordan together, it was easy. The two of them laughing and doing sweet things to each other. But where did that leave him? Didn't he fit in there? Somewhere?
Or somehow.
Doing sweet things to each other. They're all picky about words. But where did that leave him? Didn't he fit in there somehow? He blinked away the images. Germain was looking at him intently. "You like him," the dragon said softly. Wilmer could deny it, but what would be the point? "I do, yes. But so do you." Germain averted his gaze. "That's irrelevant." "Why? You don't think—" I don't think I fucked up irrelevant this time. "But so do you." Germain averted his gaze. "That's irrelevant." "Why? You don't think he could develop feelings for you?" "I'm a dragon, he's a wolf. An omega wolf. Even if I were to fall for him, what could I offer him? He'll want kids, and I can't give them to him." Germain wasn't being melodramatic about it. "He'll want kids, and I can't give them to him." Germain wasn't being melodramatic, but he'll want kids, and I can't give them to him. Germain wasn't being melodramatic about it, but the quiet sadness of his words struck Wilmer hard. He couldn't deny the truth. Any relationship between Germain and Riordan would be complicated, but did that mean it was doomed to fail? At the same time, he hesitated to assure Germain he should go for it. But why? It wasn't like his own feelings for Riordan were that intense. Sure, after that dinner, he had looked at him differently, but that was normal. Any single alpha would assess an available omega like that. In the back of his mind always lingered. But that was normal. Any single alpha would assess an available omega like that. In the back of his mind always lingered the thought that someone might be a potential partner, a mate. But he and Riordan had known each other for well over a year. If they were fated mates, destined to be together, wouldn't Wilmer have picked up on it by now? Wouldn't Riordan have felt something sooner? No, it didn't make sense that he and Riordan were supposed to be together. But why then did Wilmer have such a hard time telling Germain to take a chance? "You don't—" But why then did Wilmer have such a hard time telling Germain to take a chance? "Don't you think that's something he should decide for himself?" he finally said. "It's an ingrained habit of us alphas to make decisions for omegas, but they can do that themselves. Why don't you let Riordan determine whether the potential complication of not being able to have kids with you would be a reason for him not to even try dating you?" Before Germain could respond, hurried footsteps announced Riordan's return, and a few seconds later the omega came barreling around the corner. He was wearing the same jeans, but he had swapped that gorgeous pullover for a black fleece jacket. Not quite as charming on him, but much more practical. He had also exchanged his sneakers for a pair of boots. "There, I'm ready for our adventure," Riordan declared. Wilmer was glad both Germain and Riordan had experience with horses. While he would have been happy to go slow and teach both of them the basics of riding, this was much more relaxed. He watched as Riordan adjusted the length of the stirrups, then hoisted himself up with ease. He looked comfortable on Sweetie, who was aptly named. She was the sweetest pony Wilmer had ever encountered. She was Sando's, but Sando didn't mind anyone else riding her, especially since he couldn't ride for a while due to giving birth. She needed the exercise, and she was the perfect size for Riordan. Wilmer handed exercise, and she was the perfect size for Riordan. Wilmer handed a riding helmet to Riordan, who put it on without protest, pulling the straps tightly. Many people were complacent about wearing helmets when horseback riding, But after seeing a friend in a horrible accident and only walking away from it because he had been wearing one, riding helmet to Riordan, who put it on without protest, pulling the straps tightly. Many people were complacent about wearing helmets when horseback riding, but after seeing a friend in a horrible accident and only walking away from it because he'd been wearing one, Wilmer had made it a hard and fast rule to always wear one. He refused to go riding with anyone who didn't. Sure, they might be a bit awkward, but safety trumped discomfort at all times. Germain was a little less elegant in mounting his horse, but he managed. Once he was comfortable in the saddle, he looked good and confident, even with his helmet a tad crooked on his head. He patted Jackie's neck, talking to her in a low, soothing voice. Once he was certain both Riordan and Germain were good, Wilmer fastened his helmet and mounted Pride. Pride was a beautiful chestnut quarter horse, 6 years old, and his loyal companion since the day he had been born a premature foal. Foal. I'm not a horse person.
Foal.
Thank you. Riordan and Germain were good. Wilmer fastened his helmet and mounted Pride. Pride was a beautiful chestnut quarter horse, 6 years old, and his loyal companion since the day he had been born a premature foal. One thing Wilmer loved about his job and being in the pack was that he was able to keep Pride close and ride him almost daily. "Let's go," he said over his shoulder, then took the lead, guiding them toward the trail he'd picked. He was careful to stay on the path. The vegetation was still recovering from winter, and he didn't want to crush the young leaves and sprouts by having the horses step on them. They went at a leisurely pace, and he checked every few minutes if Germain and Riordan were following. Riordan was right behind him, with Germain bringing up the rear. Both men were smiling from ear to ear. "Are you guys okay to try? On bringing up the rear. Both men were smiling from ear to ear. "Are you guys on bringing up the rear. Both men were smiling from ear to ear. Oh, shit. Whoopsie! On bringing up the rear. Both men were smiling from ear to ear. "Are you guys okay to try a trot?" he called out. "Yes, please," Riordan said, and Germain joined him a second later. I mean, it's factually true. "Yes, please," Riordan said, and Germain joined him a second later. Wilmer clicked his tongue and pressed his calves against Pride's side. "Bah!" "Yes, please," Riordan said, and Germain joined him a second later. Wilmer clicked his tongue and pressed his calves against Pride's side, and the horse broke out in a steady trot. He closed his eyes for a moment, raising his face toward the sun. It wasn't warm yet, but the temperatures would soon be going up, and he couldn't wait. Some people were bothered by the long, hot summer months, but he loved every second of them. Despite his blonde hair, he rarely got a sunburn, though that might also be because he used sunscreen religiously. When the trail widened into a meadow, he slowed down until the three of them were riding side by side. "You guys doing okay?" he asked. "Yes. Gods, I hadn't realized how much I had missed this," Germain said. Wilmer had a hard time looking away from him. He'd never seen him this happy and radiant, and it did funny things to Wilmer's belly. "You missed out on a lot, while with being isolated for so many years," Riordan said. "I would go insane, let me tell you." Germain's smile faded. "In the beginning it wasn't too bad because we assumed it would be temporary. Our father hadn't indicated how long this period of seclusion would be, and we all reckoned he meant weeks, months at the most. But then a year passed, and another one, and 2 years became 10 and 50, and there was no end in sight. All we knew was this endless monotony of being cooped up in the castle with the same people, having the same conversations, doing the same things every single day." He blinked, then cleared his throat. "Sorry, I didn't mean to unload on you." "That's okay." Riordan waved his hand. "I can imagine it's something you need to talk about." "Maybe, but not with you. I mean, not that I don't want to tell you or fear your reaction, but I don't want to burden you with my stuff. You've got enough on your plate already." Wilma repressed a smile at that clumsy... Did I say Wilma? Don't want to burden you with my stuff. You've got enough on your plate already. Panda. Don't want to burden you with my stuff. You've got enough on your plate already. Wilma repressed a smile at that clumsy chatter. Germain was trying so hard, and Wilmer's heart went out to him. You're not burdening me. If it gets too much, I'll tell you, I promise. But until then, please, talk about it or anything else. I enjoy hearing your stories. From both of you. Well, Germain wasn't the only one rambling. These two were so adorably sweet and careful with each other, and it became easier and easier. Yeah, you know what? Don't want to burden you with my stuff. You've got enough on your plate already. Wilma repressed a smile at that clumsy chatter. Germain was trying so hard, and Wilmer's heart went out to him. Oh, you're not burdening me. If it gets too much, I'll tell you, I promise. But until then, please, talk about it. Or anything else. I enjoy hearing your stories. From both of you. Well, Germain wasn't the only one rambling. These two were so adorably sweet and careful with each other, and it became easier and easier to picture them together. But why did that image feel so wrong, then?